Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about investing in yourself. And I have with me Dr. Gailda Davis, who is the Vice President and Executive Director for ACE Connect. She leads ACE's community engagement strategy with a focus on collective impact to transform higher education. And she helps communities convene in meaningful and generative ways. Dr. Davis supports ACE's annual meeting, as well as both emerging and longstanding communities such as ACE Women's Network and Council of Fellows. She served as the Chief of Staff to the Senior Vice President of Education Futures Division, and she's led the ACE Women's Network and developed several professional learning programs at ACE. She is an accomplished author and sought-after speaker and advisor. She served for 10 years in the District of Columbia Higher Education Licensure Commission, and that is the regulatory body for all post-secondary institutions in Washington, D.C., and she was the chair of that body from 2014 to 2016. She served as an adjunct faculty member in the Higher Education Administration program at George Washington University, and she has the credentials of having an EDD from the George Washington University in Higher Education Administration, an MED from Texas State University San Marcos in Counseling and Guidance, and a BS from the University of Texas at Austin in Child Development and Family Relationships. She holds a certificate in coaching from the Association of Talent Development. And what I also like to say about Dr. Davis is she's a fantastic mentor, and I really appreciate her coming on the show. So welcome, Dr. Davis.
Oh, thank you so much for that kind introduction.
I really appreciate your time. And, the first thing I want to make sure is that individuals know who are listening all over the United States as well as in other countries. Can you quickly explain what ACE is?
Yeah. So the American Council on Education, we are a policy advocacy organization that serves higher education. We have about 1,700 members who are colleges and universities. Our organization serves really through our institutional memberships about 80% of all of the students that go through higher education. We are an organization that has been around for well over a century now, and we will continue to serve the needs of higher education and our learners.
That's what's amazing about ACE. You touch so many universities, and I've been privileged enough to attend conferences and be part of your programs, and it truly is professional development. And I took it as an investment in myself when I was participating in it, and I truly appreciate the work that you all do.
Thank you so much. We have been really fortunate as an organization to continue to serve not just from the policy and advocacy space, but also in helping individuals who are interested in pursuing greater degrees of leadership in higher education in the post-secondary education realm as a whole to achieve their personal and professional goals as well.
Mm-hmm. So that leads us right into about investing in yourself. You do so much work encouraging others to invest in their professional development. Why is education and development more critical now more than ever?
Well, really, if you think about it, the data shows us that education is linked with a host of positive outcomes that transform lives, both the life of an individual, but as well as those that they are connected with. But I want to blow this out a little bit because I think probably what makes it more critical now than ever before is the ways that we're seeing advances in our society. We're seeing technology advance at an exponential rate. We're seeing how social and economic mobility are integrally connected with learning and development. And we can think about this even from the ways that our society globally has become more and more interconnected. The ability to understand diverse cultures, learning how to engage with individuals who have differing perspectives, who come from different values and cultures, all of this is really linked with education and development. And the more that we are able to see society grow and advance, the more important it is for us to be educated on what's happening and have a deeper understanding of how we are connected with this.
Mm-hmm. And what successes have you seen with individuals who are going through that professional development? How is it really, truly helping them?
It's interesting because one of my favorite passages is wisdom is the principal thing. So get wisdom. And with all of your getting, get understanding. Really, what you see is people gaining insights and being able to use those insights or even refine their own skills as they go through professional development programs or initiatives in a way that actually helps them to achieve greater outcomes, that leads them to future successes. Everyone is trying to advance in their own career, in their life, in whatever realm they're trying to advance in, will need to gain new insights, will need to refine skills, will need to look at what is it that I need to do to be my best self, my greater self, and how am I going to use that then to contribute becomes a penultimate question, if you will.
That's right.
But people who go through professional development opportunities have that base in which they can focus on gaining those insights, getting the wisdom that they need, deepening their understanding, sharpening those skills in a way that allows them to become more agile, more adaptable, have a deeper understanding of not just what it means to be successful, but how do I actually get there? And all of that then increases their confidence level. Leaders who have gone through professional development time and time again talk about how they are able to see those insights coming into play in their professional space in a way that actually boosts their confidence in how they perform as a leader. And that actually does lead to better outcomes overall.
Oh, I agree with you. I think there's something said about the fact that once you have the degree in the professional development, you can actually help others coach through that. And those credentials really mean a lot when you're talking to others who are seeking help. There's also a clear understanding that you're talking the same language. If, we can talk about experiences, shared experiences, an understanding of what that research and either a quantitative or qualitative method, what that means, and how that can, especially in higher education, that is valuable. I can't say enough to those that are really on the fence. They're not sure if they should get even a doctorate and what that would help. But statistics are showing repeatedly, although some say, well, you don't need to have a degree. Well, you don't for some roles, but if you're seeking leadership in higher education, it does mean a whole lot, especially when you're going up and competitively looking for jobs and roles that are in leadership. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think it's really important. I have found it really ironic that a lot of the people that question the value of higher education and degrees are, in many instances, some of the biggest beneficiaries of having said degrees, either themselves or through their family lineage. But I'll digress from that for a moment and just say that certainly it is important to have the degrees. We know that people who hold degrees are more likely to achieve greater levels of wealth. We know that people who hold degrees are more likely to be civically engaged, more likely to make healthier life choices, even to the degree of the food that we choose to eat. And so all of this leads to ultimately better outcomes in life for those who actually do attain the degree. However, I will say that you can't just stop there. And I think that's probably the part of this conversation that I got really excited about. It wasn't enough to get the doctoral degree and stop. I have to continue to invest in who I am and who is it that I am hoping to self-actualize to become. This is really important for leaders because we don't just get the degree and know everything we need to know. That's an entry pathway in some aspects, and it does position us better to gain more insights, but it doesn't mean that you stop there.
Can you talk a little bit about what that professional development, that next level to keep yourself in tuned and alert? And we talk about Pen Leader, we talk about keeping sharp with education and experience. What would you suggest for those that are leaders out there? What kind of professional development would you recommend?
Well, let's play this from different angles because I certainly recognize that people have access to different types of opportunities. So let's start at the lowest cost level investment.
Okay.
Read, listen to podcasts like Pen Leader podcasts, hear and gain insights from those those individuals that you are reading about, learning from through these various podcasts. Stay connected with media outlets. Those are simple ways that people can invest in themselves. Take the time to say, for the first 15 minutes of my day or the last 15 minutes of my day, I'm just going to do professional development for the next 3 weeks. Every Friday for over the summer, I'm going to take half a day and do professional development. Figure out what works there and do that. Now let's go a level up from there. There certainly are any number of programs in boot camps and academies that one could look at. There are a number in higher education. I don't even want to start listing out the various ones in higher education, but I'll certainly put a plug in for the ACE Women's Network, which is a network of state-based organizations that focus on supporting and advancing women in higher education leadership. Certainly we have the ACE Fellows Program that is a year-long program that is designed to immerse leaders in a mentoring and coaching relationship that helps them to gain insights and to sharpen their own skills to go to the next level in their careers. Many others exist, but the bottom line is find the one that's going to work for you and your life, the time that you have, the amount that you can commit to, and do something that invests in yourself and helps you to move forward in your career.
I think that's something said about that. Your program being the many parts of just the selection process, but I think that, what you are describing, ACE, and your impact across the nation, if you're in higher education, you're looking for leadership development, that is definitely an option because of your reach and your knowledge, and you have such a great team of people there. So it's a plug for ACE, definitely, because again, I can say I experienced it and would recommend it. Yes. And so let's talk a little bit more about if you're seeking out from a cost-effective way. One thing that we do ask a number of our leaders that join us on the show is, what are you reading? What are you watching? And you'll hear this wide variety, diverse literature, even positions of how they approach that. I think you're saying here for preparation, you're saying, you really need to schedule the time to make the time. And I know that when we talk a lot about with coaching with clients in both the business and in higher education sectors, we talk about laying aside time to help growth. And just like you're in your own personal classroom, if you're going to class, it's dedicated time to learning. And I would recommend that as well. It's a great way of doing it. Block the time, turn off the phone. If you've got an iWatch, take the watch off so you're not disturbed and just get to work. And some people do it first thing in the morning, whenever time you need to do it, and definitely see what others are listening to and reading. I appreciate you even recommending Pen Leader podcast. We do a lot of work in that area and trying to make sure to bring that forward.
Yeah.
Now, can you share a little bit of what your thoughts on working with the business sector and what that looks like? Because I know you have a number of partners.
Yeah, so I think I'll say it this way. In working with the business sector, as we think about professional development from an organizational perspective, we are looking at what do businesses need from learners, and what makes business leaders successful. You just commented a moment ago about the ways that we keep ourselves engaged and being intentional is probably my critical focal area this year. Be intentional about how we think about the work that we're doing. Be intentional about how we're spending our time. Be intentional about how we move things forward has really been a big focus for me. And so coming into thinking about business partnerships and how we connect with other businesses and organizations, the business sector has a different set of leadership lenses, I would say, that the world is viewed through than the nonprofit sector in which I exist. However, there are some things that we have in common. One of the books that I haven't read it recently, but I refer back to it periodically, is The Virtues of the Leader. And I cannot remember the author's name right now, but just kind of reflecting on those virtues, those core values that tend to prevail in leaders across sector, across industries, that really shine through as important. Things like integrity, things like respect of others, things like willingness to a strength to weather the storm. Those types of examples, no matter where you are leading, those types of virtues, those types of skills will always always be valuable.
That is right on with, I know when we talk about pin leaders, that sharpness, I know we're focusing on the experience and education being, when investing in yourself, but you just reaffirmed again the strength of character and how critically important it is. You do what you say you're going to do, the honesty, the integrity. There's been unfortunately, others might say, well, that's not as important as it used to be, or no, it's always important. And especially when you're recruiting and retaining talent, they look for that. Individuals leave companies and groups based on if they can feel that the leader is honest and transparent. And, even when delivering bad news, can they believe? Are they believable? And it's not just about the money. That was a concern that for some, well, no, they leave for different reasons. We work with a number of companies for exit interviewing. And once you lose the trust of the individual, and it's done. They're not going to want to work for you. And dishonesty and not upholding what you say you're going to do, it's a big part. The other piece that I think, having a plan and being able to pivot and do it well and communicate why you're doing that pivot, that's another thing that we talk about being in pin leader.
You really just brought up something that I think is crucial. I often talk with people about leadership is not about the title or the position one holds as much as it is about the ability to inspire people to move forward. If you as a leader are not prepared to engage with individuals in a way that is both recognizing their strengths professionally, but who they are as a human being, this is where the trust and the respect really come into play that allow you as a leader to move forward. And it's done from a place of authenticity. It's genuine for those who are most successful.
I've had more great leaders, and I say great, those who are successful in how they define success, because measuring it is different depending on who you talk to. It really comes down to a lot of how they feel is the most piece of their world that they feel that they've made their accomplishments. And you can hear gaining the trust, building relationships. It could be with their families or it could be with clients or customers, but they value that and they show it as a prized accomplishment. You just answered some of my last questions for you about, what are you reading? Are you watching anything fun as well?
This is a really interesting fact. So this year we decided to homeschool my 13-year-old. And a lot of my reading time has now gone into relearning pre-algebra concepts and understanding earth science as an example of where my textbook time is now going. But for my own self, I actually have been listening to an audiobook over recent weeks called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. I have discovered over the years that I am an introvert, but I am an introvert who knows how to operate as an extrovert when I need to. And it is really fascinating because this is the first book that I had come across that actually celebrated introversion in a way that allowed me to see myself in a book that talks about what it means to be successful and a leader in this world that really does celebrate leadership, extroversion as a component of leadership. So I've been really appreciating that book. Now, from a watching perspective, when I do have time to watch, I like to watch things that allow my brain to just kind of veg out.
Okay.
The simple things like Abbott Elementary, or I love cooking and baking. So I may watch a baking championship show or something to that effect.
Well, I appreciate that because leaders, the strongest leaders that I know are good listeners, and introverts are wonderful at listening. So I don't see how that hasn't been celebrated before. That's a great book recommendation. Thank you for that too. So I will say I can't thank you enough for coming on and just sharing those words of wisdom and understanding. For those listeners who are not in a higher education space but are in business, there's some great nuggets here. Listening to someone who helps the leadership of the next generation that are actually training the workforce and how they perceive it. And I really appreciate you wanting to work across the aisle with those in business to make sure that they get what they need as well. So thank you so much for that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the last nuggets that I would like to share really has to do with comment about authenticity as a leader. I take great pride in the fact that I have been able to achieve many successes in my career without having to sacrifice who I am. My priorities and my values have held clearly for me in the forefront. And I really want to encourage listeners, no matter which aspect of leadership you're pursuing, be thoughtful about who you are, your priorities, your values, and make sure that as you advance, that you don't lose sight of those things that are core to who you are.
And that's an excellent nugget. That's more than a nugget. That's a whole boulder. Can I say that? I love that. Well, Dr. Davis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in, listening, and sharing the show. We appreciate you as well. Remember, we have an upcoming newsletter at info@mazeassociatesltd.com for you to sign up. We also want to make sure you know about the wait list for the new book, Pin Leader Path, Identifying, Engaging, and, of course, Developing the Effective Human and AI Leaders of Tomorrow, especially for your organizational culture. So please make sure you get on the wait list. And, of course, until next time.
The Pin Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Maze & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pin Leader podcast and share with others.